Really different.
Want to take a walk on the field?
Sure, let's. Yeah, we'll let Russ figure out the keys.
We're going in.
We're gonna take a look at the field, Russ. We'll be right there. See how I was telling you about all the dorms up there?
Yeah. That's all golf.
All golf course before.
Yeah, and the dorms,
Yes.
That's where we stayed.
That's where you guys stayed?
Yeah, that's where we stayed.
Oh, we'll have to show you that then.
Yeah, the field's basically the same. No, I mean, nothing's changed too much. Okay. But that's the top. That's where right hit the ball. Halfway up that. See ATT.
Yeah.
Go from the top of the ATT sign.
Yeah.
To about 3/4 of the way up. Is where he hit a ball.
He said Jim Rice hit a ball.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Halfway up that light center field.
17 years old, he said, at the time. Dick was coaching at, managing at Williamsport, and Rice was playing for him.
Yeah.
Okay, so where's your place in the dugout here, Dick? Or which dugout were you guys using?
We use this dugout.
You use this dugout?
We use this dugout, yeah.
Well, actually, you used both dugouts because you were the,
Oh, yeah,
you were the visitor.
club. Yeah, it's a visiting club. Yeah, it's better.
See, Dick, they were down there the last 2 balls for the year. Look at this,
The 2 balls from 1968.
Dick. Here's the 2 you needed at Williamsport.
Oh, man, oh, man. Yeah.
He was telling us about a time he was managing in Williamsport, Greg, and he said they got down to the end of the game and there were only 2 balls left in the entire ballpark. Yeah. They had to go out to the bullpen and take the balls away from the guys warming up so they could continue the game.
And they saved the empty popcorn boxes.
Yeah, we'll get Russ to tell stories about these 6.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Russ swears he never did that.
Good morning, I'm Jim Roselle.
And I'm Russ Diethrick.
And welcome to the times of your life. And what a special moment for a time in some person's life that spans 50 years with one organization, the Boston Red Sox. We're delighted, we're privileged, we're pleased to have an opportunity to talk with Dick Berardino in our hometown to visit a ballpark that he played and coached in 1968. Dick, welcome home.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Believe me, it's nice.
Dick, we're gonna do how we're the game plan here. Let me just jump into this a little bit, Jim. We got Russ, who clearly was the ownership here with the franchise having with the Jamestown Red Sox, or the Red Sox at that time. Jim Roselle, of course, WJTN, and yourself. And so we just thought we'd kind of let Jim do some initial questioning. Myself, Scott Kinberg from the Post-Journal. We have an august group of people behind us. They'll all dive in at some point, and we'll just see how far we go.
Fine.
Okay, Jim?
Let's go. Let's do
Well,
it.
Dick, you know, when you look at your career now and realize the long journey you've had, where did your love for the game come from?
Well, you know, I played baseball all my life. You know, obviously, I go back to the point where we didn't have Little League and all the organized sports now. We just played, you know, by ourselves down at the field. And, you know, I didn't start playing baseball till I was in junior high. And, you know, I liked it and then played in high school and college and signed the pros and been part of my life ever since.
Well, did you ever dream or picture yourself being so loyal to one organization?
No, you know, you never do. You don't know what's going to happen, but it worked out fine for me. I was actually in the Yankee organization for 10 years, as you know, and they wanted me to go full-time way back in 1968 when I was teaching and coaching and then managing and coaching in the summer, and I didn't want to. I had 2 young children and got a teaching coaching job, and then I found out the Red Sox were looking for a coach here in Jamestown. They had a lot of players, and called Neil Mahoney, and he says, yeah, we need a coach in Jamestown. And I said, okay. And next thing you know, I was on a plane, and Charlie Wagner picked me up at the airport, and I've been there ever since. That's it.
Russ, let me jump in there. And Russ, why don't you set the stage for the audience here with regards, what was it like in 1968? You were intimately involved with professional baseball in Jamestown through the Parks Department, your own interest, and franchises were kind of bouncing around quite a bit during that time period. The Dodgers, the Braves. Set the scene, which would bring Dick Berardino here to to Jamestown?
Well, as you mentioned, the franchises were bouncing around, and of course, Jamestown had a long history of minor league baseball. So Jamestown was on the radar screen for most of the player development people throughout baseball. I think would be a true evaluation. Had a good facility, had a good community. The life for the ball player in Jamestown was well accepted and appreciated by the minor league development people, and so they always looked for Jamestown to be a site. So when the Red Sox had an opportunity, or Jamestown had an opportunity to make a marriage and brought the Red Sox to Jamestown, it was another exciting period in baseball. As you mentioned, there's been several minor league operations here, but with the Red Sox, it was really, really exciting time. There's a lot of Red Sox fans running around the street in Jamestown. And there's even more nowadays. When I was coming in now, there was a young lady walking on Lakeview Avenue by Faulkner, and she had a Red Sox sweatshirt on. So,
Oh, great.
So they are out there.
I'm glad someone's wearing them now,
But,
especially after this year.
but although, you know, Jamestown's played a major role, and there were years that were struggling in minor league baseball, as you well know, and everybody in the room. And that was part of that period. And that's when the ownership of the team became more local. We had a local group that they accepted the responsibilities. In fact, when we took over the baseball team, or when they took over the baseball team, they were about almost $50,000 in debt. And that was motel bills, ball bills, umpire bills, everything. And that group of people got together and they formed an organization which they called a sustaining membership group. And they paid additional money beyond their season tickets. And inside of about 2 years, they paid all that debt off dollar on dollar. So that's one thing we were very proud of. And plus the games that was played on the field, we were very proud of. But the Red Sox brought on excitement into Jamestown, along with you, Dick, and others that you can talk to about who some of those folks were here. But it was a high watermark. One of the things that was, remember in those days, we looked around, there was 250 people in the grandstand. But where did all of those people come from? But that has developed over the years, and that's a lot of part of the history. If it wasn't for a group of local people that took the responsibility financially and to support the program, I don't know where minor league baseball would have gone. I want to think the rich history of Jamestown in minor league baseball would have kept it alive. But during that period of time, there was a group of people that stepped forward.
Just for the record, Russ, why don't you name a few of those people who were part of that local ownership group?
Well, Eric Guggen was a very active member. And
Yeah,
you got
wonderful.
close
Eric
to
and Martha,
Eric
we were
Guggen,
very close with Eric and Martha.
Marty Haynes was very active in that with us. Dr. Eugene Foley was very active. Mr. Newhouse from Newhouse Distributing was very active. And Jim Sanders from a local businessman had a Gerton's store in town, a flower store. Roger Anderson, a local, very active and very effective member of the Junior Chamber of Commerce, and then a whole host of other people, but they are some of the people that come to mind quickly. I remember at the end of the year, when we looked at the bottom line, a lot of times there was red finger marks in it. It was red numbers were smeared. And there was a group of people that stepped forward with the help of the banking community in Jamestown.
Yeah.
And they'd pay the debt off so they could start out next year. They said, well, if you have a good opening next year, you can pay the debt. So, but that went on for several years, Greg.
Dick, you come in here first day, and Charlie Wagner meets you, brings you here. Your manager is a guy named Jackie Moore. What do you know about him?
Well, Jackie and I actually played against each other. When I was in the Yankee organization in the Carolina League, he was playing in Durham. It was the Durham Tigers, and I was with the Greensboro Yankees. And we first met. He was catching, I was an outfield. And, so we played against each other in the minors. And so when I came here, I knew Jackie, he knew me, so there was no problem. We had a good relationship. And I saw Jackie when Texas was in Boston the last trip and told him that I was coming to Jamestown, and he wanted to make sure I said hello to Russ and anybody there, because he was here from '68 and '69 when I coached for him, and just a great guy who's had a lot of years in baseball, managing the big leagues, coaching the big leagues, and it was fun. It was fun being here with Jackie and the players and Russ and everybody. One of the reasons why I came back here to do this, was because of the treatment that my wife and I and my two young boys had for the 3 years we were here. We stayed out at Lake Chautauqua the first year, and then we stayed at the at the dormitories the next 2 years. But everybody, did everything they could to help make us feel comfortable, help us find things. So there was no hesitation on my part coming back here to do this today, really.
What was the expectations of the Red Sox of you insofar as that this was a Class D at the time, or had they
Just
reclassed?
A, it was A. Yeah.
As far as was this a developmental league at that point, or were they really here to say, let's see if we can win some games?
No, well, you're always trying to teach players to win. But, this was low-level development, okay? Mostly first, second-year players, okay? So obviously we want to develop their skills and make them better ball players and try to find which ones could eventually get to the big league. So, you try to teach the winning aspect of it, but it's more developmental than winning.
As I look at the roster of some of the players who were with you in 1968, you had a guy named Cecil Cooper.
Right, Cecil. You're on to the big leagues.
Yeah, what was he like?
Cecil, most of the kids, your first year, they're young, they're a little nervous, they have a lot of anxieties, playing baseball every day as opposed to not playing, just 2 or 3 days a week. But Cecil was good. I think it was Ben Ogleby here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And but no, great kids at the time. They were kids, and enjoyed working with them, and developing their skills. And of course, some will go on to get to the big leagues. Some don't get there, obviously. I think only about 1 or less than 1% of players signed today get to the big leagues. So it's not easy. Now a little bit more maybe because there's more teams. Okay. Yeah, but it was great. I always liked working with young players because I taught school for 23 years, as you know. So working around young people keeps you young. I try to keep you young. And, they listen. Once they get to the big league, sometimes they don't listen anymore. You know what I mean? But they listen down here.
What were the road trips like, Dick?
Well, here I didn't have to make any road trips. I came basically because they had too many players and they couldn't take them all on the road. So Neil Mahoney, the farm director, says, we need a coach that can keep the extra players, 15, 20 players, whatever it was, and work them out every day when the team's on the road. And that roster rotated, okay? And then when the team was home, I helped Jackie, coach first base for him and through BP and helped. And then they went on the road, and I worked the players out here in the mornings, and that was mainly my role for the summer.
That for all 3 years? That sort of
all 3 years, yeah. Oh no, just for that year with Jackie. In '69 and '70, we didn't have as many players, so I went on road trips.
Okay. I didn't know that. That's kind of interesting. Which is currently, interestingly enough, what the Detroit Tigers are currently doing right now as they're preparing for the World Series. They brought in all of the Rookie League teams or guys that are down there just to have scrimmages at Detroit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's sort of got this gap. That's what's currently going on.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that either.
Well, I think it's a good idea, keep them sharp.
Yeah.
Sometimes I forget who it was. Was it Milwaukee? Not Milwaukee. Might have been Seattle. One team that Blue Pinella had, they had a long wait into the World Series, and then they get swept or something.
Well, that was the Tigers too.
Something like that. They had a long wait, and all of a sudden they get swept.
Yeah.
So this is a good idea.
Dick, and during your period, people arrived several weeks earlier before the season started and had almost like a mini camp here, didn't you?
Yeah, that's basically what you do with, and we do that. We did that in Elmira, and we do that in Lowell. They have about a week mini camp. That's why we had Charlie Wagner here. We had Frank Malzone and Sam Mealy, okay, and then myself came. And I stayed, and then after the season started, usually a day or two after, they'd watch a couple of games if we opened up at home, and then they went their ways, and I stood here. Yeah, we did that every year, even up in Elmira and in Williamsport. We had camps.
So you had quite a history in the NYP League, besides Jamestown, New York.
Yeah, Jamestown, Williamsport, Elmira. I spent a lot of years in the NYP League, in fact, in '72 in Williamsport was when they had the big flood.
Oh, you were there for that.
They were there. The mini camp was Scrouts. We were in a hotel. We had to open up the season on the road. The park was underwater. We opened up 2 weeks on the road because of that flood, '72, which I'm sure you got rain here too, right?
We bet.
Yeah. Okay. That was interesting.
One of your players in 1968 was recently here as a Detroit Tigers Latin American head of Latin American operations, Manny Crespo.
Oh yeah, Manny. Yeah.
He sends his
Randy
best.
sent me a video of him being interviewed at Crespo. Yeah, and Manny mentioned my name. Yeah, I remember Manny. Yeah, good guy.
He also mentioned in that interview a guy named Anthony Caprino, somebody who would sort of bless his bat and give him some sense of of success. And do you remember that at all? Do you remember
I
anything?
don't remember that, but I mean, I know there's always a lot of quirks with different players, you know.
Yeah.
And with managers, superstitions and stuff like that, etc. You know, eat the same food every day. And of course, I managed Wade Boggs, who ate chicken every day, you know. And he didn't hit 300 for me, and I told him the only reason he didn't hit 300 was because there were no chicken McNuggets at McDonald's. So you have a lot of superstitions in baseball.
Yeah.
Okay, a lot of superstitions.
Greg, the Anthony Caprino you're talking about, Joe Caprino's son?
Yeah.
And Jim was very, very close to Joe Caprino over the years, and they were very, very good friends of Eric Guggen.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Joe was a very strong supporter of the baseball during that time.
Yeah. In fact, we bought a TV from Caprino's. When my wife and I, when we left here in 1970, and bought it from Caprino's through Eric, and put it in the back seat of the station wagon, and took off for Massachusetts.
And it probably still works.
No, it's heavy. They don't make them as heavy as those TVs. Believe me, I could hardly get into my car. A lot of good memories here, though, in Jamestown. Believe me.
Russ, refresh everybody's memory about how you were so difficult with bats and stuff as the end of the year because you were counting balls, bats, uniforms, everything. Talk about that.
You know, and during those times, you remember, Dick, and others, the local operation was responsible for buying the balls, buying the bats, and all of those kind of things. And then when Dave come in for that 2-week training and during the season, we always used the balls that were not used or lightly used, and the bats for the next batting practice. And of course, I even still, it's probably true now on a minor league level, they have specialized bats, get their name on them, et cetera, et cetera. So when the team went on the road, what you talked about, Cecil Cooper and Ben Ogilvy, they had arrived late, if you remember, and we ordered 12.5 of bats for each one of them, autographed. And on the road, they took about 3 or 4 bats with them and left the rest of them behind. So what I used to do at the end of that last road trip, or when you were on the season was over, go around and gather those bats up because we needed them next spring.
Sure.
I'd go look every place I could in every corner to find an old dirty baseball because we needed that.
Yeah.
So Cooper and Ogilvy come in the office after you guys returned, and they said, can I talk to you? And I said, yeah. It says, somebody stole our bats. And I said, what? He said, well, when we went on the road, we had extra bats, we left them behind. He says, and somebody stole those bats. And I sort of looked down and said, well, I stole them, but I'm the one that took the bats. And I said, I left you 3 or 4 bats with your names on them and stuff. Yeah, but somebody took all of those bats. And I said, well, yeah, because we needed those bats next spring for spring training. So
That's the way it was in the minor leagues.
Had I known that they were going to go to the major leagues, they could have had all the bats they wanted.
Baloney, you would have had him autographed and could give him the Sports Hall of Fame.
It was tough in those days. Yeah.
Some youngster that following spring got to use the Cecil Cooper and the Ben Ogilvy bat.
Oh, yeah. Well, Joe Buses, who owned clubs for years, used to have a machine with erasers in it. And he used to take all the old baseballs and put them in this machine. And the balls would go around on the erasers, and it would turn the balls white, and he'd reuse them. Yeah, true story, to save money. Okay. And then Joe Romano, who was the manager when I was in Williamsport, all right, he bought these Dudley baseballs because they were like softballs. And in those days, we used to have starting pitchers like they pitched on a Sunday. They had Monday off, and they threw 20 minutes of batting practice on Tuesday. And Bob Stanley was pitching for me in Elmira, and he said, Skippy, I can't throw these balls. They were too light. And I said, yeah, I'm going to hurt your arm. And I told Joe around, get rid of these balls. We can't use these balls. They're softball balls, you know. I mean, things like that to save money, you know, and stuff like that. But, you know, you didn't want to ruin somebody's arm. I mean, all kinds of ways, because that's the way it was in those days.
Well, they had to do that because that's the only way they could pay the water bill and the light bill.
Exactly.
But I will say the Red Sox had a good player development contract with them, and they were very generous on the contract.
Yeah, they were.
I remember they were very, because we had the responsibility for meal money.
Yeah.
And they were very supportive of helping meet that meal money deal.
Right.
Although what they give you, 50 cents a day or
Oh,
something.
God, it wasn't much.
But the Red Sox were very, very good to work with that way.
Yeah, they were.
One of the guys on the 68 roster, just looking at it right now, probably made more money than Cooper and Ogilvy and everybody combined, was a guy named Dennis Gilbert. As a
Go Gilbert.
yeah.
Go Gilbert played for me in Elmira. They used to have a designated runner in this league, you know, for the pitcher.
Yep.
And if Go wasn't in the lineup, he was my designated runner for the pitcher. You know, if the pitcher walked or he got on base with a base hit, Go-Go would go and he'd run for him, you know. And I haven't talked to him, but he's talked to people I know, especially Nick Cafato of the Boston Globe has met him, and Go-Go always has said say hello to Dick. But he was my go-to man, and the reason why he's called Go-Go because he could run like hell.
I remember him here when if he walked, he ran to first base, wide open.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. That was like David Eckstein. That's how every time he walked, he ran like heck to first base.
So that's why he's been
Played for me.
chasing other things as an agent for these ball players over
He's
the
worth
years.
a lot of
Very
money right
successful
now.
as Greg.
Oh,
is.
very successful. You know, very rich.
Yeah. There's your connection, Randy Anderson, Dennis Gilbert.
Did you have an agent when you started in the Yankee organization?
No, there was no agents at all.
How about Topps baseball cards? Did you?
Yeah, I signed Tops for Tops. You know, I got my check of $5 or whatever it was, and that was it. You know, everybody got $5 regardless. Everybody got $5.
Dick, do you have a favorite player that you managed that we might recognize? I mean, obviously there's many major leaguers that you would have come across, but
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of players that got to the big leagues, but I think probably my favorite player that I managed over the years was David Eckstein. You know, just because of David's whole background. Walked on at Florida State, then got a scholarship. No one thought he was going to develop anything. He played for me in Elmira in 1997, and just got the most out of his ability. Came from a wonderful family who had kidney problems. He's just recently donated another kidney to a member of his family. That's why he retired a little early from baseball. His family have given each other kidneys over the years. Just a tremendous story about a family. And David just, you know, against all odds, you know, he never got to the big leagues. Too small, all that type of thing. He ended up playing shortstop when he should have been a second baseman for the Angels. 2 World Series rings. So I think David was probably one of my most favorite players.
But there's a lot of other ones that Greg talked about, Cooper and Ogilvy.
Oh, yeah, they were all...
You had several of them in the NYP League that went on, that the local Jamestown fan would remember.
Oh, yeah, I mean, Jimmy Rice, you know, Wade Boggs, Glenn Hoffman, Reed Nichols, Bruce Hurst, Bob Stanley, Mike Greenwell, just to name a few that went on to become
And
big
you
league
mentioned a
players.
couple of Hall of Famers.
Yeah, well, Rice and Boggs are in the Hall of Fame now, you know. And both struggled their first year, you know. Jim Rice only hit 6 home runs his first year, hit 270. Boggs only hit 263. It was funny because one year we went to winter meetings after, you know, seasons, and all managers had to go over their players. And they had to, you know, say, well, where do you think he'll play next year and how high do you think he'll go? Well, when I, you know, talked about Boggs, I said he's a below average third baseman, below average arm, below average hitter, below average power, below average runner. And that's what he was. That's what he was. Everything was below average. I said, however, he has a great work ethic, so he will improve. I projected him AAA. That's my projection. Now he's in the Hall of Fame. So I'm a stink as an evaluator of talent. You know, he laughs about it. He always kids me about it. He's, you know, when you get to the big leagues, I says, well, that's what you showed me in Elmira, you know. But that just goes to show you that, you know, you work, you improve. Some guys had good years for me and never got higher than A-ball, you know, or AA, you know. So you never know what's going to happen, you know. But some guys, like Kurt Schilling, I had, you know, you knew we were going to be big leaguers because, you know, he could pitch and he could throw. He was a big pain in the butt, but, you know, he could pitch, you know.
Not in the Red Sox organization, but...
Yeah, in the Red Sox organization.
But I'm saying
the
beyond,
minors.
beyond that.
Beyond that, yeah.
Beyond here in Jamestown. Jim Roselle broadcast games for WJTN, and there was a guy that come out and pitched, and it was one of your first games, wasn't it?
Yeah, I told
You told him
Dick
about,
earlier, yeah.
Yeah.
about Frank Larry.
You can't help but remember it when you realize what he accomplished after he left here.
Yeah.
He goes on to become a 20-game winner. And they called him the Yankee Killer, by the way.
Yeah. You never know. I mean, especially when they're young. Sometimes they develop, sometimes they don't. And there were a lot of surprises along the way, and a lot of guys that are a lot of disappointments that you thought would make the big leagues, you know, and they just didn't work out for them.
Dick, how about some, when you were in the Yankee organization as a player, some of the players that you played with, you remember any of those?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was in that era where, like that Amarillo team I talked about playing in Amarillo, we only had 18 players, 8 pitchers, 4-man rotation, okay? There was myself, Jim Boughton, Joe Pepitone, Phil Linz, Tommy Tresh.
All on the same squad.
All in the same squad. All in the same squad, you know. And like I was telling Randy, when I was in the Yankee organization, I kept trying to convince Ralph Hulk that I was better than Mickey Mantle. But for some reason, Ralph wasn't listening. Okay? So I've always thought Ralph was dumb. Okay? In any event, there were some pretty good outfielders ahead of me at that particular time.
What was your college career?
My college career, football and baseball at the College of the Holy Cross.
Holy Cross.
Yeah.
And you were scouted at Holy Cross and signed out of Holy Cross?
Yeah, I actually signed after the College World Series in 1958. I had another year left to go, but I decided to sign, went back and finished my senior year at Holy Cross, and then went and continued my career after that.
I can't help but want to ask a question here,
Yeah.
Dick. You mentioned Jim Bouton.
Yeah.
Did you ever read his book, Ball 4?
Oh yeah, you know, and I think Randy will appreciate this. Jim Bouton wanted to get a lot of his players in Ball 4. You know, guys. You know, he mentioned all of, guys that were his roommates and stuff like that. And I taught business law. Okay, we were talking about libel and slander. You know, the written word, the slander, the spoken word. So I brought this book in because there's a section in there where he says that Ralph Hulk broke the team up into two workouts: morning workout and afternoon workout. He said, and Ralph said, it doesn't make any difference what group you worked with as far as making this club, but Ralph was, he knew who was going to make the club, you know. And the morning group had guys like Mickey Mantle, Roger Maris, Whitey Ford, Elston Howard. And the afternoon group had a bunch of guys named Dick Berardino. You know? So I brought this book in to my business law class. And I read that to my business law class, and I said, can I sue? Okay? You know, can I sue for libel, you know? And a kid in the back who never, ever raised his hand in class raises his hand. And I suddenly said, my God, look who's raising his hand, I said to myself. And I can't remember his name, and I says, why can't I sue? He says, Mr. B, he says, you can't sue because you said if it's the truth, you can't sue. He says, so you must have stunk. That's what he said. And then I said to him, and you expect to pass this class? You know? And that's a true story, you know? Yeah, I read Jim Bouton's book, that's for sure. And another book I just read, and there's another player I played, was Oil Can Boyd's. Okay, Oil Can Boyd plays for me, but and I read his book, and it was rather interesting.
A guy who played for you and is now part of your world in 1969 was Dwight Evans. Is he going to write a book about you?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
You're keeping one on him, though,
But
aren't you?
Dwight has a funny story here. There was we had a third baseman that was in the service, an older player, and Dwight came as a third baseman before he made an outfielder of him. And he actually threatened Dwight, okay, because he thought Dwight was going to take his job. And Dwight was just 17, 18 years old. And he actually spit in Dwight's face one time because he was so upset that Dwight was going to take his job. And Dwight didn't know what to do. And he came to me and Jackie Moore and said, hey, they're not going to do it. And we said, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it. We talked to him. You know, he was a guy who was in the service and came back and was older and wanted to play every day and really, hyper type of thing, and was a little upset that Dwight was this young rookie that was going to take his job, stuff like that. It was a true story.
Wasn't that true in that day that even at the major league level, players did not want to sit out? There was
No,
somebody else
especially
on the
like
bench.
days of Frank, those guys. Now guys want to sit out all the time. They're making so much money they care less sometimes, But in those days, like Frank, as I told you before, Dick Williams told Frank one day, former major league manager Dick Williams, told Frank one day, Frank, you should take a day off. Frank says, I ain't taking any day off. I'm playing every day. Get away from me, he said, et cetera. But in those days, you didn't want to, because then you might lose your job. Someone get in and went 4 for 4, you might be on the bench.
Talking about Dick Williams, tell your story of Dick Williams with the interview at the town club.
Well, they were having a lunch for him at a private club here called the Town Club. And I went down with my recorder to get an interview. And the Town Club was loaded with customers that day. We tried to find a quiet corner where we could talk. And there was no quiet corner, really. Basically, every room had a private party going. And you know what Dick said to me? Let's go in the men's room. And I said, okay. We went in the men's room, put the recorder on the sink, found an AC plug, and I plugged it in. while I'm interviewing, this guy walks in to do his duty. And the urinal's not but 2 feet away. And he did his duty while I'm interviewing Dick Berardino.
That's interesting. That's
And
very
you know,
interesting.
when he got done, he wrote on a piece of paper and handed it to me. And as Dick was answering the question, I looked at it. He said, "Nobody will ever believe it."
That was a great
True
story.
story.
You can't
Only
make-
in baseball.
Yeah, you're right. Only in baseball.
I've got to ask a question here.
Yeah.
You know, you can't help but think of Ted Williams with the Boston Red Sox. How many stories in the locker room does each generation of Red Sox players hear about Ted Williams?
Oh yes, some great stories. Charlie Wagner had some great stories about Ted Williams, and you know, it's probably one of the stories I'll probably tell tonight. You know, but I'll tell it here since these gentlemen are here. Charlie roomed with Ted many times, and he also they had a guy by the name of Jim Bagby on the team. All right, now Jim Bagby was an infielder, utility infielder, who had kind of a hair lip, and always kind of talked like he was talking through his nose. All right, and they were in Detroit. Ted went a couple years after Ted came up, and he was having a great year. And they're playing in Detroit. Fred Hutchinson managing the Detroit Tigers, and it's a tie game in the 8th inning. And Ted's already got 2 hits, including a home run. And Hank Greenberg's playing first base. All right, so bases are loaded. Ted's coming up, and Fred Hutchinson comes up to the top step of the dugout in the old Tiger Stadium, and he's moving the infielders in. Okay, and Hank doesn't want to move into the infield grass because Ted's hitting, and Ted could hit a ball pretty hard. Okay. And now Jim Bagby's kind of watching all of this, you know, and just watching. And finally, Greenberg relents, and he comes into the infield grass. And Jim Bagby comes up to the top step of the dugout, and he says, "Now the boy," says Hank, "keep coming in. Keep coming in. If you want to look like me and talk like me, keep coming in." That's a true story. That's a true story. You know? That's a true story. You know? And I first learned that from Charlie Wagner. You know, and I sometimes I'm a little nervous about telling that story because there could be somebody in the audience who has a speech impediment.
Yeah.
And you know, today if you're not politically correct, you know, you'll get a letter from somebody saying, you know, stuff like that. So you know, but yeah, and, but Ted, Charlie roomed with Ted, and he said, you know, those days they had roommates. They don't have roommates anymore. They all have their individual rooms. And those old hotel rooms with those big bedposts with those little knobs, okay, sitting in the end, Ted used to have a bat with him wherever he went. And he'd stand in front of that knob, and he said, "All right, fellas pitching. First pitch, I know it's going to be a fastball, middle in," and then he'd boom, and he'd hit that knob and knock it all over the room, you know, and then hit all 4 knobs off. You know, that's the way Ted was. It's the way he was about hitting. And in those days, pitchers pitched 9 innings. So most of those hitters knew what the pitches were, how they were going to pitch them. Today it's a little different because, you know, you face a starter, a middleman, a setup man,
Yeah.
okay, and a closer. You know what I mean? So it's a lot different. I think it was easier, believe it or not, to hit, I think, in Ted's time than it is now. Because you didn't have the splitter, you didn't have the slider. You had fastball, curveball drop, maybe changeup, you know? So it's a lot different, you know?
Funniest thing that happened to Dick Berardino.
Funniest thing happened to Dick Berardino?
So you're telling the story tonight, and you say, "I just want to tell you if the funniest thing happened to Dick Berardino, either to you saw, those type of things."
I think the funniest thing that happened to me was I was managing Lynchburg in 1988, coaching third base. We were playing some team. I was coaching third base. And there was a ground ball, double play, and the second baseman really came off the bag. When he caught the ball, he definitely wasn't on the bag. So I got in a pretty good heated argument with the umpire, because it wasn't bang-bang. He really missed the play, all right? And I got so upset at the call. I didn't get thrown out of the game, but I got so upset at the call that I forgot to go back to third base. I went back to the dugout. And I sat down in the dugout, and I was sitting in the dugout just talking about the play, okay? And there was a utility infielder. His last name was Mendenhall. And he said to me, he says, "Skip." And I says, "What?" Because I was upset. He says, "You're supposed to be at third base." And I looked up, the umpire's standing there. Scott Cooper was playing third base. He's standing there. Everybody's saying, "What the hell are you doing?" You know? Now I got to go back up and coach third base. It's pretty embarrassing, funny thing for me. You know? So I think that's probably the funniest thing of that movie. You know what I mean? I completely forgot I was
Your
coaching.
proudest baseball moment.
Proudest baseball moment for me was when I became a big league coach after all those years. And we went to Yankee Stadium. I was bullpen coach my first year, 1989. Old Yankee Stadium. And a little tough. I was standing for the national anthem. My father passed away, and never saw me in the big leagues. And I thought of him that day, and it was the proudest moment for me.
Yeah, it would be.
When
Sorry.
did he pass away?
Passed away in 1987 when I was managing in Greensboro. You know, so this was '89. So he never saw me in the big leagues. So that was the proudest moment for me.
Was he a guy that played catch with you as a kid and do all
Yeah,
that?
oh yeah. He was. I was an only son, Italian family, and he played semi-pro ball. Came over from Italy when he was 3. Loved baseball. You know, encouraged me and everything, and you know, so I mean, he was one of the reasons I got the chance to play ball and stuff like that. You know, because he loved it. Never had a chance to play. He had to work. Didn't finish high school. You know, those days, either did my mother. They had to go and work and stuff like that. But learned English, you know, and if I can say this, never looked for any freebies.
That's right.
You know what I mean? You know, worked hard, learned English, and earned every penny that he ever made. You know?
Dick, could you hop skip through your
Yeah, sure.
baseball career?
Yeah, I guess, you know, I signed, obviously, out of Holy Cross in '58. Went to Modesto my first year and played 8 years in the minor leagues. Those days, that was C-ball, okay? Then played at Greensboro, which was B-ball. Went to Binghamton, where I met my wife, Kathy, in A-ball. Played half the year there, then went to Amarillo AA half that year. Went back to Amarillo in '61. Went to Richmond, Virginia, half of '62, and then they sent me to Indianapolis with the White Sox to play that half the year. Next 2 years I played for the Dodgers. I was still owned by the Yankees in Spokane, Washington. Finished with the Yankees in '65 at Columbus, Georgia. So I played 8 years of minor league baseball, then got into teaching, coaching, and then 2 years managing with the Yankees in Sarasota and Johnson City. And then '68, bingo, here.
And then at the major league level, as you said earlier, too.
Yeah, 89 to '91 with Joe Morgan. Then he got fired as manager, and then I went into instructing in the minor leagues, and then became field coordinator, assistant field coordinator, etc.
And you had another job besides that. How long did you teach school?
23 years.
23 years
Yeah.
in a public school system.
Yeah. It was funny, you know. I was speaking this past fall, and I went through all that, some of that stuff like that. You know, 20 years teaching, 10 years with the Yankees, 45 years with the Red Sox. And this elderly guy comes up to me afterwards. He says, "Dick," he says, I was sitting there listening to all those numbers and where you've been. He says, I added up. He says, "You got to be 96 years old. What the hell are you taking?" You know what I mean? And I said, well, the 23 years I was teaching, I was also working for the Red Sox, you know? But he was sitting there saying, well, he graduated at 21, 10 years, 23, 45. This guy's 96 years old. He says, "What are you taking? What are you eating?" You know? It was funny. It was just so funny, you know?
Dick, for some of the Jamestown people, watching Greg's program, remember Kathy and the kids, and
Yeah.
you could update us on your family.
Yeah, okay. I met Kathy obviously in Binghamton, you know, and then you know, we got married in '61. Steve, my oldest boy, was born in Indianapolis, Indiana, in 1962. Rick, my youngest, was born in Spokane, 1964. We'll be married 51 years next weekend. Okay, and I have 6 grandchildren. Rick has 4. Stephen has 2. 4 boys, 2 girls. You know, and you know, one's in mortgage business, one's in biotech, and I've been very fortunate, so that's it.
1970, you played with a guy who was manager here, Jackie Jensen, who also was a legend, not only with the Red Sox,
Yeah.
but also with idiosyncrasies regarding flying and
Oh,
stuff
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Talk to us about Jackie Jensen.
Jackie was a wonderful man. His wife, name was Kathy, by the way. His wife's name was Kathy. His second wife, his first wife was the Olympian, I think, Yeah, and they lived in the dorms with us over here. Jackie was just a super class act. Never spending time in the minor league, so managing was tough for him. He had a hard time managing in the sense that, the do's and what's of managing, okay? But a wonderful individual. Was my favorite Red Sox right fielder, okay? Because I used to go to games and sit in the bleachers and watch Jackie and Dom DiMaggio and Ted and all those guys, But he didn't want to fly, so he took a train from then California all the way here, okay, and a train back, I presume, But just nice to be around, and his wife, we went up to eat every so often when we could, and just a very, very fine gentleman. I really enjoyed being around him.
2004, Boston Red Sox, break the curse. Where was Dick Berardino through all of this, and how were you feeling? Was your the anticipation of maybe?
Oh yeah, I was sitting home watching the game because they won on the road. We had seen the games at Fenway, obviously. Sitting watching TV with Kathy, just the two of us. Just excited, because I guess, for a while they thought that I would end my career in no World Series, So it was pretty exciting to win it after all those years and being with the Red Sox for as long as it had been then. And knowing that, it was going to end up with a World Series ring and all that. And most of us and a lot of New Englanders, after that, went to the graves of our grandparents and our fathers with Red Sox pennants, and stuck them over the grave because they weren't here for, and they were all great Red Sox fans.
Sure.
That was kind of a phenomenon back in New England. All of the grandfathers and fathers who had passed away and didn't get a chance to see a World Series. Of taking some pennant or something and putting it at the gravesite.
Did you do that?
Yes.
Did you?
It was amazing.
What's that ring on your finger?
This is a 2007 World Series ring. I don't have the 2004 because I never wear them both together. It's too much bling for me. You know what I mean? So I've got the 2004 and 2007. So this is the 2007.
Can you get a close-up of that, Greg?
I get a close-up. We're going to get a picture of that and send it to my daughter. She's the assistant general counsel for the Detroit Tigers, so she's dreaming of that right there.
Right now.
Well, I will correct myself. We have this autograph alley at Fenway Park where Red Sox alumni, coaches, and players come and we sign autographs before. And it's the only time I wear both the rings when I sign autographs. And then I put this one on the middle finger here and the other one on this finger, because people want to. So I just do this, and they take pictures of the ring with their, with their little cameras, and they love it. They love to take pictures of the rings.
It'll take a picture of you, though, just your ring.
My ring. And then they always say, "What's your favorite ring?" And I always point at my wedding ring. And they all laugh. Especially the women. Oh yeah, of course.
Talking about your ring and the autographs, etc.
Yeah.
What is the scenario with autographs at the major league level? Do they? You see them occasionally on television signing by a dugout or something. Are the guys still pretty easy to do?
They're pretty good. I mean, they have people that work for the Red Sox that set up some things so that the guys can sign. The only thing about major league players now, for the most part, they don't sign legibly. In other words, now they end up putting their number down because you wouldn't know who it is. Like, that was wonderful things about Johnny Pesky, Johnny had a great signature, and he would take his time. And I take my time. When I write it, you can read, it says Dick Berardino. If you looked at Clay Buckhouse's signature, okay, or Pedroia's signature, any signature, you wouldn't know who it was. Yeah. It could be anybody, you know what I mean? It's they don't take the time that the other players used to take to sign, to sign a name so it's legible and you can see, well, that's all right, this is a Joe Smith. I had one funny experience that I regret. When I got to the big leagues as a coach, you'd come out and people want you out. I always just say, I'm just a coach, you want Rice, you want Boggs, you want these. No, we want you. So I'd say, okay. I mean, I never refused an autograph. And I'd sign Dick Berardino. And they look at it and they'd say, Dick who? And I said, I told you. You know? And it went on. So one day I came out and I tried to tell him, no, we want your autograph. So I don't know why I did it, and I regret it to this day. I signed Dick Who. And I handed it back, and the person looked at it and he says, Dick Who? I said, that's right, that's me. And I got on the bus. And after I got on the bus, I said, why? I felt bad that I did it. And that's the only time I regret ever doing something like that to the fan, okay? But so many times I kept having to hear, Dick Who, Dick Who, Dick Who. So finally I signed one, Dick Who. You know?
That ball probably is worth $5 million today.
Yeah, they're still looking for Dick Who. You know?
Were there guys who were notorious about not signing? And if so, what kind of pressure did some of the other players put on them? You know, some guys just didn't want to, still don't want to.
I think some of the players just left other players alone. If they didn't want to sign, they didn't. You know, no one pressured them. Most of the guys signed all the time. But there are some guys who... I had a personal experience, with one Red Sox player who's no longer with the Red Sox for his failure to do some of the things. I won't mention his name, but he had some problems the past couple of years. He's a pitcher who's left. Okay, and I won't mention his name. But he, a good friend of mine, whose son had cancer for a couple of years. A young son had cancer. Won a raffle to his charity, and they went to this event, and he was supposed to do something with them, and he kind of blew them off. And then at the game the next day, he was supposed to take some pictures and sign some autographs with them when he was coming off the field. And he said, "I'll be back. He's just got to go to the clubhouse," and never returned. And sometimes you find there are some players, unfortunately, that do things like that, you know, and I lost a lot of respect. But for the most part, they're really pretty good at doing charitable events and doing things of that nature. But unfortunately, there are some who just don't get it, if you know what I mean, you know.
Dick, what are some of the moments in history that you were present at baseball as far as batting, home runs?
Well, I was in the bullpen when Bernanke caught that ball to clinch the 1980 American League Championship. Mm-hmm. You know, I remember that distinctly. And Ozzie Guillen was the one who hit the ball. Okay, so that was pretty exciting.
What year was that, Dick?
1990. I'm sorry, 1990. Yeah, I was in the bullpen then, so that was pretty exciting. I was in the bullpen when Roger Clemens got thrown out of the game down in Oakland. Okay. And they were throwing stuff on the field, and I left the bullpen, and I grabbed Marty Barrett by the arm because I didn't know he'd already been thrown out of the game, and I didn't want him to get thrown out of the game. He wasn't starting. And when I grabbed his arm, okay, you know, he lost his balance, and he came around, and John Harrington thought that he threw a punch at me, and he didn't. You know what I mean? And he says, what are you doing? I said, I'm trying to get you down off the dugout so you don't get thrown out of the game because you might have to go in the game. He said, I've already been thrown out of the game, you know? And then John Harrington was upset because he thought that Marty threw a punch at me, which he didn't, you know, and that got straightened out. Those are some interesting times. Because Roger was I always felt to this day that Roger didn't want to pitch that game because he had arm problems and was pitching on 3 days rest. And he was such a great competitor that he felt that he might hurt his arm. And I think he knew he was going to get thrown out of the game if he continued to get on umpire Cooney. That's only my, my thoughts. I don't know if it's true or not, but it was one of those things where he just didn't see himself that day, and I think and I actually suggested to Joe Morgan that we not pitch him. Joe asked all the coaches, and I said, no, I think he's a franchise player. I'd pitch someone else, and I don't know if we can beat Oakland 4 straight, but if you pitch somebody else and we win that game and you pitch Roger on regular 5 days rotation, maybe we'll win 2 games. Now it's a series, okay? Because I didn't think we could beat Oakland 4 straight that year, And I had just a gut feeling. I don't know. I didn't think Roger. I mean, he wanted to pitch. He was a great competitor, but I don't think he wanted to pitch on 3 days rest. But that's just speculation on my part,
Any story you can tell about Carl Yastrzemski?
Yaz played against Yaz in the minors. I remember he was at Winston-Salem when I was at Greensboro. Yaz is somewhat of an introverted person, okay? Even to this day, in spring training, I see him, he's there for about a week, 10 days. Never goes out to eat, always just take out to go home, you know? Just is a very introverted person, you know, hard worker, you know, I mean, obviously a Hall of Fame player. I had a good relationship with him, still do today. Help him out with his he has a Yaz Day, which we help kids with birth defects. We go in and help out. They bring them in and let them run the bases and take batting practice and stuff. So I help them out with that. A lot of us, but Joe Morgan, Jerry Moses, John Tudor, a few of us. But other than that, I very seldom see Yaz, except in spring training. You know, kind of keeps to himself. I think more so now since the death of his son.
Did anybody get his comment after just tied the record or beat the record?
Cabrera.
Triple crown.
Who just beat his record?
Cabrera.
Yeah.
Cabrera.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he made some. There was some comments about from Yaz. He was happy for him.
Yeah.
You know that someone finally broke his record, etc. You know that's a tough thing to do, and you might not see it again for quite a few years. You know.
Did you have interaction at all in your Yankee experience with Mickey Mantle?
A little bit in spring training. I went to 2 major league camps with the Red Sox. Once in St. Petersburg, the next year in Fort Lauderdale. Yeah, Mick was a good guy, kind of to himself. Roger Maris was a little more outspoken with us. Okay, I mean he was good. He worked with us young outfielders in the outfield. Mickey kind of stayed to himself, you know, etc. Joe DiMaggio worked out, and I got to tell you this story because I think you'll appreciate this. I was a little bit not a prankster, but I used to like to have a little fun. I was serious, a little fun, and we were, I guess. Ralph was calling a lot of us rookies, like Pepitone and Linz and all these guys. We were getting cut to go to the minor league camp and get ready for our season, right? And just prior to that, when Joe DiMaggio was down here, there was a rumor that Marilyn Monroe was coming to spring training to visit Joe. So naively enough, we thought, you know, well, she'll probably be in the parking lot, the players' parking lot, where we parked our cars. You know, we get a chance to see Marilyn Monroe. And we were getting, Ralph called us in to cut us, and she was supposed to come the next day. So we weren't upset that we were getting cut to go to the minor league. We were upset because we thought we were going to get a chance to see Marilyn Monroe. So after we left Ralph's office, there was about 7 of us, I said, you know, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go back in and ask Ralph for an extension, a day's extension. They said, you can't go in the manager's office and ask Ralph, you can't do that. I said, no, Ralph's a good guy. I think he'll understand, okay? So I went and I knocked on the door, and Ralph says, come in. You know, and he's sitting at his desk, you know, with this cigar that he smoked. And he looked at me like, what the hell is he doing back in here, you know? And I said, Ralph, look, I'm representing the guys that just left. And I said, we all understand why you cut us. You know, going on minor league camp, we don't have a problem with that. But we were just wondering, we hear Marilyn Monroe is coming to town tomorrow, and if you could give us another day's extension, we may get a chance to see Marilyn Monroe. And he took the cigar out of his mouth, and he said, get the hell out of this office now. I said, okay. And I left, closed the door, and I could hear him laughing back there. Okay, you know? And they said, what happened? I said, he threw me up. I said, we told you not to go back in there. He said, you're going to get screwed now. Then I said, no, he was laughing back there, you know. But, you know, it was fun. And then when Ralph came back to manage the Red Sox, I said, Ralph, do you remember that day I came here? He said, yeah, I remember. He says, you know, I said, you laugh like hell, he said, you know. And,
Did she show up the next day?
No, God, if she did, she wasn't in the parking lot. I'll tell you that much. I'll tell you that much. She wasn't in the parking lot.
Well, wasn't it Phil Linz that had the harmonica?
Yeah, Phil had the harmonica on
You
the
ever
bus.
heard him play?
No, I never heard him play. Well, I went to an organizational meeting one time, though, and we all went down to his Mr. Laughs place somewhere in New York. He had a bar or something, you know, called Mr. Laughs, you know, and we all went down to visit with him and had a couple of drinks and talked a little bit. Yeah, Phil was a good guy. All good guys. Tommy Tresh. Joe Pepitone was kind of crazy, but give the shirt off your back. You know, probably had most natural ability of anybody I played with in the Yankee organization.
Really?
Joe Pepitone, great wrists, good outfielder, good first baseman, had power. You know, good guy. Got a chance to reunite with him a little bit when I got to the big leagues. He was doing some public relations work for Steinbrenner or something of that nature. You know.
Who was the biggest clown in the locker room, day after day?
Day after day in the locker room. Probably Boughton. Boughton was kind of a clownish type of guy. You know, he was strange. You know, I'd probably say he was a little goofy. And Phil Linz, he was a little goofy. You know, good guys, but a little goofy. You know.
Dick, I did an interview, and you don't remember this because probably because Russ and I caught you because we were doing a book called on the history of baseball, and we caught you in the locker room. It was a visitor's locker room, and we were just had a kind of a stand-up, and we were a little bit higher class than, you know, Jim Roselle taking Dick Williams into the men's room. I heard the story. I'm feeling better about how we caught Dick before. It's just in a hallway. But anyways, you talked about really the best player you ever saw, and you said Mickey Mantle, and the best pitcher you had seen was Roger Clemens, and this was in 1998. Anything changed?
I don't think so. You know, I mean, Mickey, watching him in spring training, I mean, the way he could run, the power from both sides of the plate, he just was so impressive, you know. And, you know, he wasn't on anything. You know, it was just natural ability. You know, he had these small wrists, but he had these big forearms, and he had a big back because he used to, you know, pitch hay for his father and all that stuff. So his build was he wasn't tall and stuff like that. But, I mean, I just never saw him with, you know, with such, you know, watching him take batting practice and watching him play in some of the spring training games. And just Roger, his work ethic. I mean, when Roger, before he even went out to the bullpen, it looked like he had just pitched 9 innings. The workout that he used, because, you know, he's got what I used to call this Texas mentality, you know, big is better, you know, big is stronger, you know. And I'm still giving him the benefit of the doubt, you know, until he admits that he took steroids, you know, because I have a good relationship. We still exchange Christmas cards, believe it or not, you know. And I saw him, he came out for Johnny Pesky, so I saw him and his wife, etc. But, yeah, I think those probably, you know, the 2 most impressive people in those positions that I would say.
I say in baseball, one of the most successful, the creators of the good program at any level, and would be the scouting program, the scouts. You remember who signed you, and do you have any other relationships with scouts throughout the years?
Yeah, well, what happened with me was Joe Page scouted me and would have signed me, but he passed away. So I ended up going to New York, and Lee McPhail and Jerry Coleman signed me because Joe Page at that time, he passed away. And I was the one that sort of initiated it to a certain extent, you know, get some word on it. So, yeah, I took a train to New York and went up to the Yankee offices, and then I called my dad, and we decided we were going to sign, and they signed me, yeah.
Do you remember a restaurant? I went on a golfing vacation with a lot of buddies. Joe Caprino, one of them, by the way.
Oh, okay.
And we went to a restaurant in Winter Haven called Mario's. And that's in the Boston Red Sox for spring training there.
Okay, Mario's
Italian restaurant.
I think I remember Mario's. Only 2 restaurants. Mario's was one of them, and then there was another one that was owned by a Greek fellow that was nothing too far from
But the one at
hotel.
Mario's, the Boston Red Sox players were waiting on tables because you would give to the cancer fund.
Oh, yeah, okay, I remember that
They
restaurant.
would sell you a glove autograph or a bat autograph.
Yeah,
Jim Rice was one of them.
Okay, yeah.
And we told Joe Caprino that guy is making.
I remember going. When I was a big league coach, we went to that restaurant to do
We
some
were telling
charity
Joe
thing.
Caprino that guy makes $2 million a year, and Joe said that he's waiting on tables.
That's funny.
Russ Diethrick,
Yes, sir, James.
how privileged and lucky we are to have this opportunity to talk to John Berardino with his fabulous baseball career and his marvelous and remarkable story.
Absolutely. Anytime we can bring Dick back to Jamestown, we'll do it again and again and again.
Dick, we thank you so much.
Well, it's a pleasure being here. I'm thoroughly enjoying it and look forward to